Hey everyone, welcome back to Six Path Weeb, where anime meets imagination. Today, we're continuing our fanfic journey with part 2 of What If Naruko Was Born with the Rinne-Sharingan? In this chapter, the story gets deeper, the abilities more intense, and Naruko's path more unpredictable. If you thought part 1 was wild, you're in for a surprise. Disclaimer, this content is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's get started. Today was a significant day for Konohagakure no Sato. It marked the anniversary of when their fourth Hokage triumphed over the Kyuubi. While the powerful creature had been sealed away, not everyone in the village understood or accepted what truly happened. When Lord Hiruzen, the third Hokage, instructed his shinobi to share news of the event, many believed the danger had passed. They saw a difference between the one who carried the burden and the one who caused it. However, some villagers, including a number of civilians, and even a few Chunin and Jonin, were less understanding. They began to spread fearful rumors, calling Konoha cursed, claiming that the demon still remained among them. Despite the celebration of peace, some took the day as an excuse to express their fear and confusion by mistreating a young girl named Naruko, the child believed to be tied to the past calamity. At first, the treatment was subtle, unfriendly glares, silent refusals, and avoidance. When Naruko turned 3, she was forced to leave the orphanage. "You're old enough to care for yourself now," said the caretaker, who did not treat her kindly. "And don't bother the Hokage about this. He has much more important things to do than worry about you." Being just a little girl, Naruko didn't fully understand but quietly accepted what she was told. She didn't want to cause trouble for the kind old man she called Gigi. Though the Hokage visited her when he could, his visits became fewer due to his many responsibilities and the rebuilding the village still required. It pained him to see her less, but he believed protecting the village must come first. No one informed him of the difficulties Naruko faced, and whenever he did visit, she always said she was fine. The Hokage sensed her words were only meant to ease his heart, and it made him worry more. Wanting to ensure her safety, he assigned 2 Chunin to watch over her, unaware that these individuals held strong biases against her. When Hiruzen turned to Danzo for help in selecting these guards, he didn't know that Danzo harbored prejudice against Naruko and had assigned people who saw her only as a symbol of past tragedy. Danzo insisted no elite Jonin were needed, suggesting they conserve resources for village restoration. Though reluctant, Hiruzen agreed, hoping Naruko would be safe and cared for. As time passed, Naruko lived on her own. No families had come forward to adopt her, those who knew her parents already had families, and others simply didn't want the responsibility. Even Hiruzen had considered taking her in himself but felt he couldn't give her the attention she deserved due to his Hokage duties. Naruko's life became more difficult after being sent away from the orphanage. She struggled to find food and a place to sleep. She often cried herself to sleep in a small box behind a dumpster in an alley, a spot she chose because discarded food there allowed her to survive. Her clothes were tattered, and she tied her pants with a piece of rope. The food often made her ill, and the water she found was rarely clean, but she never got sick. She tried washing in a nearby river, but people would drive her away. When it rained, she would gather water to drink and bathe. Despite everything, she held on to hope that someone might care. One day, Naruko was chased by a group of angry villagers. They shouted mean things, calling her names and blaming her for things she didn't understand. Terrified, she ran through the village until she found herself cornered in an alley with no way out. She turned around and froze when she saw the group had blocked her path. "Please. I didn't do anything," Naruko cried, stepping back in fear. But her pleas only made the group more upset. "You shouldn't even be here," one man yelled, upset and confused by the hardships the village had faced. Naruko's eyes widened with fear as she backed into the wall behind her. She tried to stay strong, but she couldn't stop the tears. At that moment, something extraordinary happened. Though frightened and overwhelmed, Naruko was protected by an unseen force. As she fell unconscious from the stress, her body began to heal rapidly, guided by a powerful energy within her. The pain faded, and her small form remained still in the quiet alley. Within her, a great presence stirred. The ancient being sealed within her had seen everything. It was deeply moved by the young girl's suffering. "Don't worry, young one," the voice echoed softly within Naruko's mind. "I will help you." Time passed, and night fell over the village. Naruko slowly stirred, unaware of what had happened. She rubbed her head, wiped her tears, and looked down at her body. Her injuries were gone. Confused, she whispered, "That's strange." She remembered the harsh words and treatment and began to cry again, hugging her knees close to her chest. Why did they treat me this way? I don't even know them, she whispered, her voice shaking. Would things be better if I had never been born? She murmured. Nobody wants me. Nobody cares. She couldn't finish her thought as she wept quietly, unsure of what she had done wrong. I'm only 4. What can I do? Then, a voice gently spoke to her. Would you forgive them, young one? Startled, Naruko looked up, eyes wide, but saw no one nearby. She sat quietly, uncertain if the voice had come from outside, or from somewhere within her heart. It did make her pause for a moment. At the very least, Naruko understood what the word forgive meant. That was one of the few meaningful things her grandpa Hokage, her Jiji, had taught her before circumstances changed and she had to leave the orphanage. There, she had been taught a few simple words, just enough to get by, following an order from the Hokage himself. While living on her own in the streets, Naruko quietly picked up more words by listening to others speak. Sometimes, she would hide nearby when parents taught their children, hoping to learn a little more for herself. I would, she answered softly. Forgiveness was something she believed in, even at her young age. She didn't want to hold grudges, not even against those who seemed to hold them against her. She didn't want to mirror the behavior of the people around her, she wanted to be herself and no one else. Do you dislike them? A gentle voice asked, surprising Naruko. She looked around anxiously, trying to spot who had spoken. Who's there? She asked, waiting quietly for a response. But everything fell silent again. She sat down slowly against the wall, her thoughts returning to the mysterious question. Naruko was still very young, but she had already learned what it meant to feel left out or alone. Being asked if she disliked others made her pause. I don't think I do, she thought honestly, even if she didn't say it out loud. The voice seemed to hear her thoughts anyway, which she found a little strange. She is very kind-hearted, although that's understandable. No one has truly taken time to teach her anything, and she's only 4 years old, thought the Jubi quietly, still observing Naruko from within her mind. I will keep watching you, young one. You are curious and different. I hope the world sees that one day. The months passed by swiftly for Naruko, though they were not easy. When she emerged from her hiding place the day after her 4th birthday, unharmed, it only made some people misunderstand her more. Many had heard false rumors about her, and even those who didn't believe them chose to stay quiet out of fear. They didn't want to draw attention or face consequences for speaking out. Over time, Naruko had to find new places to stay. People found out where she slept and would try to scare her away. She didn't talk to anyone anymore. She kept to herself, avoided others, and stopped smiling. She had grown used to being alone. She even believed that the Hokage might have forgotten about her, since no one had come to check on her in such a long time. Now, it was her 5th birthday. The evening sky was darkening, and Naruko was looking for a safe spot to rest. She had become very cautious over the years, especially around this time of year. She didn't want to be teased or frightened again like the year before. She ran quietly through the streets, careful not to be seen. Eventually, she arrived at a large field with towering trees beyond a tall fence. Though the forest looked a little spooky, she spotted some bushes nearby and quickly crawled into them, hoping she could stay there unnoticed. What she didn't realize was that she was being followed, not by enemies, but by 2 shinobi assigned to keep an eye on her by the Hokage. These were the same shinobi who had once treated her unfairly. Before Naruko could get completely hidden, the 2 shinobi stepped forward, making her freeze in place. Well, you made it easy for us to find you this time, said one of them, with a smile that Naruko couldn't quite understand. She didn't reply. She stood still, unsure of what to do or say. But before she could make a move, one of the shinobi gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Relax, Naruko. We're just making sure you're safe tonight, he said, though Naruko wasn't sure if she believed him. Her heart beat fast, and she looked around nervously. Just then, more people appeared, adults who looked serious and spoke sternly. Among them was a jonin with blonde hair. Naruko had seen him before, but never this close. Seeing him among the group made her uneasy. Please, Naruko said softly, I haven't done anything wrong. You're not in trouble, the jonin replied. We're just here to keep an eye on things. That's all. But why now? She asked, confused. I'm just a kid. He sighed and shook his head. There are things you might not understand yet, Naruko. But someday you will. For now, just know that the Hokage cares about you. Even if it doesn't feel like it, you're not alone. Naruko didn't really understand. She only knew that she wanted to be left alone, and not scared. As the group walked away, the Jonin gave a small nod toward her hiding spot, and the shinobi who had followed her stepped back, allowing her to return to the bushes. Naruko curled up there, trying to calm her thoughts. She didn't know why people looked at her the way they did or why they whispered when she passed. But even as confusion and sadness sat with her, a small voice inside her reminded her to keep believing in kindness. Maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't as lonely as it felt. And even though she didn't know who or what the mysterious voice from earlier truly was, it had listened to her, and that gave her a tiny sense of hope. The red-headed girl opened her eyes, finding herself surrounded by darkness. Tears continued to stream down her cheeks, which she found puzzling. Am I not awake? She whispered softly, her voice trembling. No one ever cared about me, she said as she tried to wipe the tears away, but they just kept falling. Suddenly, a gentle light appeared in front of her. She rose to her feet, noticing a solid platform beneath her that allowed her to stand. Though she wasn't very tall, Naruko stood up as straight as she could and began walking toward the light. She reached it quickly and stepped through, finding herself on the other side, facing massive bars like those of a large gate. Uncertain of her surroundings, Naruko moved closer to the bars. She saw only more darkness. Where am I? She asked aloud, not expecting an answer. You are not gone, young one, came a calm, familiar voice, the same voice she had heard a year ago when she had been at her lowest, after being mistreated by others. Who's there? Naruko called, her tone filled with hope that someone would appear this time. As if in response, a giant red eye opened in front of her. Naruko gasped and fell back in surprise. Moments later, the light expanded to reveal the full form of a majestic, awe-inspiring being. Towering in size, perhaps even twice the height of the Hidden Leaf Village, this creature appeared both mysterious and powerful, yet Naruko felt no fear. I told you, young one. You are not gone, so do not be afraid, the creature said gently. This place is within you, within your thoughts. I am as real as you are. The enormous entity spoke with a calmness that seemed to ease Naruko's nerves, even though she was still in shock. In time, I will answer your questions. But for now, know this, you are not alone. You've called for help so many times, and though no one came before, I am here now. I will help you. Our time is short, but I promise we will speak again soon, the creature told her. Naruko nodded quietly, still in awe of the being before her. You may call me Jubi, the being said with a gentle finality. I do not have a true name, so that will suffice for now. Suddenly, Naruko felt a strange sensation as if being pulled away. In an instant, she found herself back in the real world, facing those who had wronged her. What her opponents could see, but Naruko herself could not, was that her injuries were vanishing at a remarkable rate, healing faster than any normal recovery. Even her voice, once strained, was returning as her body restored itself naturally. She's healing so fast. That's not something any regular person could do. Not even Lady Tsunade, and she's the most talented medical ninja we know. A nearby shinobi exclaimed in alarm. Then, something truly surprising happened. Naruko's eyes shifted, revealing a mysterious power. The surrounding individuals stared, confused and panicked. What? How does she have the Sharingan? Another shinobi cried out. They had all heard of the legendary technique, but none of them had ever seen anything quite like this. Glowing eyes, the entire iris transformed. As one of the shinobi prepared to advance on her again, Naruko heard the Jubi's voice in her mind. Quickly, young one. I have unlocked a small portion of your chakra for now. Hold out your right hand and repeat after me, the Jubi instructed. Naruko obeyed, raising her hand and feeling a strange sensation surge through her. Shinra Tensei, she declared, repeating the words the Jubi had given her. In that moment, a powerful, unseen force radiated from her hand and swept forward. The impact was astonishing, sending the approaching shinobi flying backwards and creating a wide clearing in the forest. The trees and ground were pushed away with incredible intensity, forming a massive crater where the training field had once been. Perhaps that was a bit much, the Jubi said with a touch of humor in its tone. Naruko stood frozen in amazement. I did that? Yes, you did, young one, the Jubi affirmed. But do not worry about it now, others are on their way. Quickly, head into the forest behind you. I will guide you. Without hesitation, Naruko turned and dashed into the forest, following the creature's advice, her heart racing as she ran. Soon after, the Hokage arrived at the crater accompanied by several elite Anbu. All of them were stunned by the scene. What happened here? The third Hokage asked, his eyes wide as he surveyed the damage. Begin searching the area, he commanded. Whoever caused this must still be nearby. Check the entire forest of death if you must. The Anbu immediately leapt into action, scattering into the trees. The third Hokage stared into the forest, deep in thought. What could have caused this? No one is allowed to train here right now. And even Anko isn't capable of something on this scale. He sighed and hoped his Anbu would find answers soon. Naruko's awakening. Naruko was currently tucked away inside the hollow of an old fallen tree, one that nature had long since claimed if the tiny insects inside were anything to go by. While she hid from the individuals searching for her, the Jubi carefully masked her chakra and presence, making it impossible for even the Anbu with tracking animals to find her. She remained hidden for such a long time that she eventually drifted off to sleep, only to awaken when the Jubi's deep voice gently stirred her from rest. "They're gone, young one," the great being said, its tone calm and reassuring. Naruko trusted the Jubi deeply, and with those words, she emerged from the hollow, preparing to return to the streets of Konoha and try to live as she had done before. But the Jubi's voice stopped her again. "Wait, little one. Do not return there, not yet," it said, prompting Naruko to pause in confusion. "But why?" she asked, glancing back toward the direction of the village. "I know people there treat me poorly, but how will I survive out here alone?" "I will teach you, Naruko," the Jubi replied with firm kindness. "I will show you how to live, how to grow stronger. You cannot rely on those who have never offered you kindness. Trust in me, and I will guide you. What I teach will be challenging, but you are capable." The Jubi's reference to the villagers as ants was more an expression of its own distaste, having never warmed to them. But Naruko, though only 5 years old, had somehow earned the creature's admiration. "You're going to help me? Why are you so kind to me, Jubi-san?" she asked softly, looking around the quiet forest that surrounded her completely. "Sit, young one, and listen carefully," the Jubi instructed. Without hesitation, Naruko obeyed. She sat against a tree, but the Jubi gently corrected her, explaining how to sit properly to begin meditating. Though unsure of what meditation was, Naruko followed each step as it was explained to her, eager to learn. Gradually, the Jubi taught her how to connect with her mindscape, the place where she had first met the enormous being. As she focused and did what she was told, Naruko once again found herself face to face with the towering entity. It was still overwhelming in size, and despite her growing familiarity with it, she had to tilt her head high just to meet its eye. Sensing her discomfort, the Jubi gently brought one of its massive tails forward and lifted her onto it. To her surprise, it was soft and comfortable, almost like a cushion. Her initial surprise was quickly replaced by calm. "Good. You're relaxed now," the Jubi said, watching her closely. "Let us begin." Naruko listened intently. "To answer your earlier question," the Jubi began, "I am kind to you because I have seen the way others have treated you. You've done nothing to deserve such unkindness, and yet they judged you without knowing your heart. But before we go further, I must ask you something important. Please answer me with complete honesty. Can you do that, Naruko?" "Yes, Jubi-san," she nodded. "If you possessed unimaginable power, enough to change everything, what would you do with it?" the Jubi asked gently. "Would you use it to harm, or for something else?" Caught by surprise, Naruko paused, her young mind deep in thought. The Jubi waited patiently, offering her all the time she needed. After a while, she spoke. "Honestly, I don't know exactly. But I wouldn't use it to hurt anyone. I know some people don't like me, but that doesn't mean I should hurt them in return." She paused, then continued more firmly, "If I had such power, I'd want to protect the people I care about. It would be mine, so I'd use it the way I believe is right. I know some people might not deserve that protection, but I'd still want to protect those who are good. Maybe even help bring peace. I know peace isn't easy. If it were, I wouldn't be here talking to you. But I'd try." The Jubi observed her silently, but its expression softened. It could feel her sincerity, the truth behind every word. For someone so young, her heart held both courage and understanding. "That was an honest answer," the Jubi said at last, with quiet approval. "And I appreciate your truthfulness. You may not realize it, but I can sense emotions and recognize lies. You, Naruko, have spoken from your heart." The massive being shifted slightly, its tone becoming more serious. "There are 2 reasons I asked you that. First, to understand your heart. Second, I plan to give you the power I spoke of. But not as a gift. You will train, grow, and earn it. For what joy is there in simply receiving power without the journey of becoming strong?" Naruko's eyes widened. You really mean it?" "Yes," the Jubi nodded. You've already shown strength, just by surviving. But with guidance, you can become something far greater. I will be your teacher, your companion, and your protector. And so, in the quiet heart of the forest, a young girl with red hair began her journey, one filled with growth, learning, and the promise of something greater than she had ever imagined. That caused Naruko to look at the entity in front of her in pure astonishment. Why you want to give me such power? Why? She asked, overwhelmed by what she had just heard. Tears gently welled in her eyes. She had never received much from others. To now hear that someone was willing to offer her such a gift was deeply surprising. She had never truly sought out power for herself. The Jubi understood this, which is why the immense being felt a sense of admiration toward the young girl. Naruko was not driven by a hunger for power. Yet, if it meant protecting someone dear to her, she would do so through her own efforts and determination. I want to give it to you for 2 reasons. First, as I mentioned earlier, I understand your heart, young one. I can sense your spirit. You wouldn't accept power that was simply handed to you. You would strive to earn it through effort and growth. Second, I wish to see what you can accomplish. I will act as your guide, a mentor if you will. And, if you are willing, perhaps a partner on your journey. This left the young redhead speechless. Someone already believed in her, not just as a student, but as a true companion. The realization brought a joyful sob from Naruko, her heart touched in a way she had never experienced before. It's perfectly fine to cry, young one. Know that I will never judge you. I am here to support you. The journey ahead will be challenging, perhaps more than any before, but it will be yours alone. So, I ask you this, are you ready to walk your path, Uzumaki Naruko? This was the first time the Jubi had spoken her name aloud, and hearing it made Naruko look up with glistening eyes. She nodded through her tears and answered the best she could in her emotional state. Hi, Jubi-sensei. If the towering one-eyed being could smile, Naruko would have seen it. Well done, young one. For now, rest. We will continue our discussion tomorrow. I know you have many questions, but your mind and heart need time to process everything. Sleep well, the Jubi said gently. Naruko felt the weariness catch up with her, likely from all she had learned and experienced that day. Within moments, she drifted off into a peaceful slumber. The Jubi, now reclining fully, also entered a meditative state while remaining ever aware of the world surrounding Naruko, stretching far beyond what eyes could see. Elsewhere, a report was being given. We are sorry, Hokage-sama. We found no clear signs of what created the crater. We were also unable to identify any of the individuals involved or how many were affected, as much of the area was disturbed during what appears to have been a sudden event. An Anbu operative wearing a bear mask stood before the third Hokage, delivering the findings after a thorough 5-hour search. Thank you, Bear. You are all dismissed for now, Hiruzen said, receiving a respectful hi and bows from the squad before they departed to rest for the evening. Knowing that many explanations would be required the following day, Hiruzen also returned home, choosing to rest early. He was already bracing himself for the questions and paperwork that awaited him, though he was still unaware of the full consequences his decisions had set in motion. The following morning, Naruko awoke with a slight jolt, something she had grown accustomed to after spending much of her early life adapting to the challenging environment of Konoha streets. As she looked around, the red-haired girl gradually recalled everything that had occurred the day before. Her hand instinctively went to her throat, remembering the sensation from a distressing experience. To her surprise, she felt no mark or injury. Jubi-sensei, she called out quietly, hoping for a response. Why don't I have any scars? And how did I recover so quickly last night? She didn't have to wait long before the deep, calm voice of the Jubi echoed gently in her mindscape. That would be because of the chakra you possess, the entity explained. To keep it simple, I infused you with my chakra when you were born. It's incredibly strong and has merged with your own. Because of that, your body can recover more quickly. Before Naruko could respond with a flurry of questions, the Jubi continued, before we get into more details, begin your day properly. Locate a source of water within this forest, clean yourself and your clothing, and then I will start teaching you how to gather food. Without hesitation, Naruko stood from where she had rested against a tree in the middle of the vast forest. She set off in search of water and was fortunate to find a small river not far from where she had slept. After removing the worn clothes she had, Naruko stepped into the gentle stream, letting the cool water wash over her. As she cleaned herself, memories of the previous day resurfaced, memories of confusion, power, and the overwhelming emotions tied to using her abilities. The weight of those moments led her to stumble toward the bank, feeling overwhelmed. She knelt down and wept quietly, releasing the anxiety and sorrow she had held inside. Let it out, young one, the Jubi's voice encouraged kindly, as Naruko sobbed softly.
I don't understand what I've become, she whispered.
You are not something to be feared, Naruko, the Jubi replied with unexpected gentleness. You acted in a moment when you were threatened. That does not make you wrong, it makes you human. You feel deeply, and that's a strength, not a weakness. Naruko sat in thoughtful silence, letting those words settle within her. After several minutes, she finally calmed, offering a quiet thank you to the presence within her. With renewed focus, she returned to the river to finish washing herself and then rinsed her clothes as well, dressing once they were clean. Good. Now comes the interesting part, the Jubi said with a light tone that even seemed amused. Naruko couldn't help but smile a little at that. This forest is home to many creatures, so always be alert. I can sense them, and right now, there's nothing close by. But just ahead, behind that bush, is a small animal. It's time to learn how to find your own food. The Jubi began guiding Naruko in the basics of foraging and survival, starting with locating and catching small animals for nourishment. Naruko listened carefully as she was instructed on how to approach quietly, and how to use a simple object as a tool. She crept toward the bush, spotting a rabbit, but the animal darted away the moment she got too close. Determined, Naruko gave chase, trying her best to keep up. She pursued the rabbit for what felt like half an hour, but before she could reach it, a large forest creature emerged and carried it off. The moment was startling, but the creature didn't linger long, it vanished almost instantly. Confused, Naruko turned inward again. Jubi-sensei, what just happened? Why did it leave so quickly? That was a snake, the Jubi explained calmly. It sensed me and decided to leave. You're still learning, and I'd rather you not face anything too dangerous right now. You need to recover your strength. The Jubi then advised Naruko to return to the river and learn a new method, fishing. Find a strong branch, the Jubi instructed, then use a rock to sharpen one end. You'll use it like a spear. Naruko did exactly as she was told. After searching for materials, she crafted a crude but functional spear under the Jubi's careful guidance. Once ready, she followed the river upstream where she found a spot full of fish. The task wasn't easy. It took her hours of practice and patience, but eventually, she succeeded. By the end of the day, Naruko had managed to catch 3 sizable fish. She was tired, but her spirits had lifted. There was pride in learning something new and providing for herself. This was just the beginning of her journey, one filled with growth, discovery, and the strength to stand on her own. And for the first time in a long while, Naruko felt like she could look forward to what came next. By then, the red-headed girl was beginning to feel quite tired. Fortunately, the Jubi gently guided her through the process of making a fire and preparing the fish she had caught. Following each instruction carefully, Naruko eventually managed to cook a simple meal for herself. When it was time to eat, tears welled up in her eyes. Thank you so much, Jubi-sensei, the young girl said softly to the only being who had shown her kindness, even if not through words. The Jubi, while not expressive in the human sense, understood why Naruko was so grateful. She had spent so many days surviving on spoiled scraps or going without food. Now, she was not only eating something fresh, but something she had caught and cooked all on her own. It was a moment of pride and warmth. As Naruko tasted her food, she couldn't stop her tears. It was the most delicious meal she had ever had, not because of the flavor, but because of what it represented. The Jubi silently observed her from within, understanding the depth of her emotions. I made the right choice, the mighty being thought to itself. She will grow into someone truly remarkable. When Naruko finished eating, the Jubi spoke again. Would you like to talk now, young one? Naruko eagerly nodded. She had many questions and, after her meal, felt much stronger. Though the Jubi could tell it would take time for her to fully recover, it was a good start. Following the meditation technique she had learned the day before, Naruko soon found herself sitting atop one of the Jubi's tails once more. Before we begin, let's try something, the Jubi said. You ask one question, I'll answer. Then you ask the next, and so on. Sound good? Naruko nodded, a small smile on her face. Her first question, however, had weighed on her heart for a long time. Jubi-sensei, why did those people treat me so badly? I've never done anything to anyone. So why? The Jubi paused, sensing the sorrow in her voice. This wasn't an easy answer, but it had been expected. What I'm about to tell you must remain a secret, young one, the Jubi began. I'll explain through a story, so it's easier to understand. Do you promise to keep it just between us? I promise, Jubi-sensei, Naruko replied earnestly. So, the Jubi began its tale, starting with the story of an otherworldly woman and her children, followed by the creation of the 9 powerful creatures known as the Bijou. The Jubi explained that it had guided events from the background, curious about how humanity would use the great powers they were given. Naruko listened with wide-eyed wonder. The story was told in a gentle, storybook-like manner, filled with awe and mystery. She didn't interrupt once, fully captivated. Eventually, the story reached the part Naruko had most wanted to know. The Jubi explained that many people feared her because they mistakenly believed she carried the same power as the Kyuubi, a powerful being that had once caused great fear. The misunderstanding led people to distance themselves, even though Naruko had never done anything wrong. Hearing this was difficult for her, especially when she learned that the 4th Hokage had sealed the Kyuubi's energy within her to protect the village. But as she learned more about the Jubi, she also came to understand that her guardian had always watched over her quietly, helping her in unseen ways. They fear what they do not understand, Naruko, the Jubi said calmly. But you are not what they think. You are yourself, and you will grow into someone even stronger than they can imagine. The Jubi then shifted the topic, introducing Naruko to new concepts, Kekkei Genkai and Dojutsu. These were special abilities passed down through bloodlines, and the Jubi explained that she possessed both. One was a unique healing ability that had been active since birth, helping her body recover quickly. The other was a powerful eye technique called the Rinne-Sharingan, which she would unlock with training. You will need to train for it, the Jubi said. I helped guide your healing before, but from now on, you must learn to do it yourself. Naruko eagerly accepted this challenge. She was ready to grow stronger. After the lesson, the Jubi suggested she rest. Despite her curiosity, Naruko realized just how tired she was. She lay down and quickly drifted to sleep, feeling warm and hopeful for the first time in a long while. From that day on, life began to change for Naruko. Though still difficult, each day brought new purpose. The Jubi first guided her in unlocking her chakra, a vital energy source. Afterward, the Jubi concealed her chakra from others to keep her safe until she was ready. Next came physical training. To support her healing ability, she needed to eat well and grow stronger. This meant hunting, learning about edible plants and berries, and understanding what her body needed. The Jubi taught her patiently, sharing knowledge gathered from generations. Within a week, Naruko's body began to show signs of recovery. She looked healthier and more like any other 5-year-old, with a bright, determined spirit. Then came her favorite part, exercise. The Jubi explained she had a strong natural stamina due to her Uzumaki heritage, another special trait. Naruko embraced her training with excitement. After 3 months of steady physical training, the Jubi declared her ready for the next step, chakra control. This will take time, the Jubi explained. Your chakra is incredibly strong, so you must learn to control it before your 6th birthday. Otherwise, unlocking your dojutsu won't be possible. Why not? Naruko asked, concerned. Because your chakra is growing rapidly, the Jubi replied. Without control, it will become too much to manage. But if you unlock your dojutsu in time, it will grant you perfect control. Naruko was shocked but determined. She promised she would succeed. Her training in chakra control began with walking up trees using only her feet. At first, it seemed impossible. It took her a month just to stick to the tree. 3 more months passed before she could reach halfway, and then finally, she made it to the top. She was overjoyed, until she learned the next step was even harder, walking on water. Each day, Naruko trained. She learned. She improved. And with each small success, she grew stronger, not just in power, but in spirit. The Jubi reminded her that soon she would return to the village to continue her learning. Naruko wasn't sure how that would happen, given how others had treated her, but the Jubi only smiled and said, "Don't worry. I'll show you when the time comes." With that hope in her heart, Naruko looked forward to tomorrow, ready for each new challenge, one step at a time. In the first 3 weeks, Naruko struggled just to stand on the water. No matter how gently she tried to use her chakra, she would always end up splashing into the lake. It wasn't until a week later that she made a small breakthrough. She managed to balance on one foot for a few seconds before wobbling and falling again. 3 months passed before Naruko finally gained enough control over her chakra to not only stand on water but also walk across its surface for a few minutes. Beyond that, her progress plateaued. The Jubi reassured her that what she had accomplished was more than enough. Any further precision would be beyond her current limits, regardless of how much she trained. She was also fortunate. Her 6th birthday was approaching rapidly, and it made both her and the Jubi a little uneasy. There was much to do, and not much time. Well done, young one, the Jubi said. Now comes the part that requires the utmost caution. If you're not careful, your eyes could be permanently affected. Naruko took a nervous breath. She had come too far to make a mistake now. The Jubi had explained to her that this next step was crucial to unlocking her special visual ability, her dojutsu. If it went wrong, she might lose that gift forever. Although the Jubi was a powerful being, even he wouldn't be able to help her if things went wrong due to how her chakra worked. It was deeply connected to his, although in a much gentler form. Because of that connection, the Jubi couldn't simply intervene. Naruko had to do this on her own. That understanding pushed her to train with even more determination. Everything she had received from the Jubi, she had earned through effort and perseverance. Sitting by the small lake she had used for nearly a year, Naruko closed her eyes and calmed her mind, following the Jubi's instructions carefully. Focus your chakra, use only the smallest amount possible, he reminded her gently. Then, guide it toward your eyes. She did exactly that, until the Jubi spoke again. There's something I forgot to mention. Your eyes, at first, they won't look exactly like mine. They'll appear different in color and slightly weaker in power. But once you awaken them, they won't turn off. Don't worry, though, they won't drain chakra unless you start using their abilities. And someday, you'll create your own techniques with them. That surprised Naruko. Wait. Am I going to lose my current eyes? She asked softly. In a way, yes, the Jubi replied. Naruko liked her eyes, they were a lovely shade of violet. But she didn't mind the change. She had no one but the Jubi, and she trusted him. With a determined expression, Naruko focused again and gently guided her chakra to her eyes. As soon as it reached them, she dropped to her knees, letting out a loud cry of discomfort, her hands covering her face. The Jubi winced inside. Ah! I forgot to mention it might feel a little intense. As Naruko groaned on the ground, the pain slowly faded. Jubi-sensei. That really hurt. It felt like my eyes were going to pop. There was a long pause before the Jubi responded. Yeah. My apologies, young one. That part slipped my mind. Naruko, still lying on the ground, puffed her cheeks in frustration. Sensei. That's not fair, she said, more like a grumpy child than a student training with a legendary creature. Surprisingly, the Jubi chuckled, something Naruko had never heard before. That's the last of the pain, I promise. Now, go check your reflection in the water. Standing up with a bit of a huff, Naruko walked over to the lake and peered down. What she saw made her gasp. Her violet eyes were now a deep, glowing purple, with a ripple-like pattern spreading outward from a small central pupil. In each eye, there was a single tomoe, the very mark the Jubi had told her about. They even gave off a faint glow, noticeable only up close. They're beautiful, she whispered, her voice full of wonder. They are, the Jubi agreed. And very powerful. Which is why we must keep them hidden for now. Naruko straightened up and nodded, but before she could speak, the Jubi continued. There are individuals in the world who would go to great lengths to obtain your eyes, Naruko. To protect yourself, I will teach you a simple illusion technique to conceal them. For now, it will return the appearance of your regular eyes. The Jubi guided her through the steps of the genjutsu, sending visual cues directly into her mind. To her delight, she succeeded on the first try. Peering into the water once more, her familiar violet eyes looked back at her as though nothing had changed. That's amazing, Jubi-sensei. What do we do next? Next, you'll begin the next stage of your learning journey. I want you to visit the library. But be discreet, we don't want anyone to notice. Naruko nodded, understanding. The Jubi had already sensed how difficult life had been for her and felt it was more than fair to help her learn what she hadn't been given the chance to learn before. It took her the entire day to reach the library, as the Jubi carefully guided her through the forest and away from any people. They planned to enter after dark when the building would be empty. When the sun set, the library area became pitch black, there was no moon that night. Naruko felt unsure at first. How would she even see inside the library? But the Jubi had already thought of that. Use just a bit of chakra on your eyes again, he instructed. She obeyed, and suddenly, the darkness lit up like it was day. Her new vision capabilities were incredible. Moving silently and with practiced care, Naruko made her way to a side window and managed to slip inside. She waited quietly as the Jubi confirmed there was no one nearby. Once inside, she began searching for books. Although she couldn't read yet, her eyes helped her see clearly. The Jubi guided her by recognizing the titles through her vision. You'll be learning how to read and write, Naruko. And not just that, what I'm going to teach you is something truly special. It's called Fuinjutsu, a powerful art that requires great precision and skill in writing. Naruko tilted her head curiously. Fuinjutsu? You'll understand in time. For now, look for these 4 books, the Jubi replied. Together, they located the following titles: Children's Book, A to Z, Children's Writing Guide, a Small Beginner Dictionary, and a Simple Storybook. Since Naruko could only carry a few books, they decided that was enough for now. Cradling the books in her arms, Naruko made her way back toward the exit, her heart filled with excitement for what lay ahead. Using her chakra control, Naruko was able to gracefully walk up the wall before carefully climbing through the small window she had opened, located high on the back wall of the library. Carrying books in her arms made the climb a bit more challenging, but she managed it carefully. Without the books, she could fit through the window comfortably; with them, it took a little longer. Naruko landed softly on the ground, and the Jubi kept alert to ensure they were alone, which they thankfully were. Once the redhead realized the coast was clear, she quietly headed toward the forest from where she had come, doing her best to stay hidden from anyone who might see her. Because it was close to midnight, the streets were mostly empty, though the village shinobi were still on patrol. Fortunately, they did not notice Naruko, which she was very relieved about. After several minutes of running, Naruko entered the forest and made her way back to the training spot near the lake. When she arrived, the Jubi spoke gently. "Young one, don't put your books down just yet. I want you to find a place where you can rest more comfortably than you have been these past months. Search for a cave, if one exists here, or a tree with a hollow at its base that you might use as a shelter." Eager for a place to call home, even temporarily, Naruko set off to find a suitable spot. About half an hour later, Naruko found a small cave hidden behind thorny bushes. Though the thorns were a bit troublesome, she considered it a lucky discovery, a quiet and unoccupied place to rest, which was unusual for this area. Perhaps the thorns kept others away, but Naruko didn't mind. This was now her home, and she was very happy with it. Inside the cave, Naruko carefully arranged her books along one wall. Thanks to her Rinne-Sharingan, she could see in the total darkness that filled the space. Feeling content, she laid down and soon fell asleep after bidding the Jubi a good night. This moment marked the true beginning of Naruko's learning journey. Having been deprived of many things other children usually have, she not only had to work hard for everything she desired at a young age but was also taught by an extraordinary being, more powerful than anyone else she had ever known. Naruko had also found a friend, teacher, and partner in the Jubi, something she cherished deeply. She showed her gratitude through dedication, training every day. The Jubi taught her to read from the books she had collected, helping her learn every letter and how to write, even if it was just drawing in the sand with a stick. Over time, Naruko became fluent in reading and writing, all while continuing her physical training. As she progressed, Naruko practiced chakra control exercises, quickly mastering tree walking and water walking. She learned how to balance chakra precisely by holding a stick on her palm without letting it fall. Thanks to her unique eyes, she excelled quickly, mastering these skills within 2 weeks. Meanwhile, she continued her studies, expanding her vocabulary by reading even the dictionary. When Naruko expressed interest in learning about Fuinjutsu, the Jubi explained that she would need special tools, as this art required more than just pen and paper. After her 7th birthday, the Jubi told her that much of her learning would have to come from her own experiences moving forward, though the Jubi would always remain her guide and support. On that 7th birthday, Naruko's eyes gained an additional tomoe in each, maintaining their distinctive purple hue. That night, the Jubi invited her to enter her mindscape to share more important truths. "Young one, it is time for you to understand more about what has been hidden from you. I know you are ready, so please sit comfortably, and we will begin," the Jubi said gently. Eager to learn, Naruko settled down inside her cave and entered the mindscape, finding herself once again sitting on one of the Jubi's tails. "Okay, Jubi-sensei. What would you like to tell me?" she asked. "This may be a lot to take in, so be patient. When I finish, you can ask any questions or share whatever feelings you have," the Jubi responded. The first revelation was something Naruko had long wondered about: her family. She wanted to know why she didn't have one and who her parents were. The Jubi explained that the person who sealed the Kyubi within her was none other than her father, Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato. Naruko felt a wave of emotion upon hearing this. Though it was difficult to accept that her father had made such a choice, she understood he had trusted the wrong people. She needed to release some of her frustration, so the Jubi gave her permission to express her feelings freely. Letting out a loud shout into the quiet forest, Naruko cried, "How could he do that? After a few minutes, she calmed down. Then, the Jubi explained why her father had taken such actions and shared a secret that had not been revealed before, the reason the Kyuubi had attacked. Learning that the Kyuubi was once controlled brought Naruko some peace, but she still felt upset toward the person who had caused so much trouble. The feeling passed quickly, replaced by gratitude for the Jubi's guidance and everything she had been taught. This brought tears of both sorrow and thanks. Naruko chose to listen quietly as the Jubi continued, revealing the identity of her mother and her story. Her mother was Uzumaki Kushina, a strong and determined young woman from the nearly extinct Uzumaki clan of Uzushio-Gakure, a village that had been lost long ago due to fear of their powerful sealing techniques. The news almost made Naruko cry out in disbelief. So, they destroyed my clan because they were afraid of its strength? Naruko declared proudly. Then I will bring back the art of Fuinjutsu for my clan, even though I never knew them. She promised herself, and her sensei, that she would never let anger turn into hatred. Though she felt anger, she chose to remain kind and strong. The Jubi explained that much of this knowledge came from the memories of the Hachibi's previous host, who had been involved in the fall of Uzushio-Gakure. Naruko felt grateful that the entity inside her had carefully preserved these memories for her to discover. She felt a mix of sorrow for her father and deep respect and love for her mother, shedding tears once more. It was hard to accept that she had grown up without her mother, only to learn this now. Naruko, your parents left many things for you, especially your mother. They entrusted you with their belongings and memories. I once saw the Kyuubi, your mother's former host, reading a will before the separation happened. When you are ready, I will guide you to where it is kept. But we must be cautious, for the place is unknown and closely watched because of your father's history, the Jubi explained. Naruko wiped her tears and nodded firmly, eager to discover what her parents had left for her. After that, the Jubi grew even more serious, and Naruko could almost sense it within herself. Young one, while this may be a lot to take in, what I am about to tell you is even more important. You must never share this with anyone unless you completely trust them and are sure they will keep it confidential. Do you understand? The Jubi asked. Naruko nodded in agreement, prompting the one-eyed entity to continue. You know what your eyes are called and that there is no other dojutsu that even comes close to what you possess. Even in its current state, no other eyes compare. But remember, never rely solely on your eyes. I believe you already understand that quite well. The young girl listened carefully as her sensei spoke. Now, about the tomoe in your eyes and why you keep gaining more, know that I crafted them this way for you. Think of them as levels. Each time you gain another tomoe in each eye, you become stronger and unlock new abilities. The maximum you can reach is 9 tomoe in each eye. The first 2 tomoe in each eye are the easiest to obtain, requiring more chakra and better chakra control. I will explain the abilities linked to each tomoe later. The third tomoe in each eye is a bit more challenging to unlock. You will need even more chakra and strength, comparable to a Jonin-level shinobi, as this stage represents a fully matured Sharingan. The Jubi paused briefly before continuing. Beyond that, each tomoe requires even greater effort. When you unlock one tomoe in one eye, you must then unlock the corresponding tomoe in the other eye to advance, until you have 9 tomoe in each eye. The last 2 tomoe are nearly impossible to unlock. But I have faith in you, young one. When you do, not only will you grow stronger, but I will have a special gift awaiting you. Naruko smiled brightly at the Jubi's words, eager to continue training and learning. It felt almost like playing a challenging game with her sensei, exciting, but also serious, knowing the responsibility of her power. I hope I'm worthy of that, sensei. But don't worry, I'll give it my all. I know you will, young one. You will need to train harder than anyone ever has. It would be helpful to have a training partner you trust, though I doubt that will happen anytime soon. Some people might try to take advantage of you once your abilities become known, especially since the power you hold cannot be taken or passed on. I speak of the Rinne-Sharingan. Naruko was puzzled. What do you mean, Jubi-sensei? The Jubi explained patiently, it means that if you have children someday, they won't inherit your eyes or chakra. But that is a topic for much later, you're still too young to worry about such things. Though curious, Naruko respected her sensei's advice and set those thoughts aside. As the conversation ended, the Jubi reminded her it was time to continue her training, as there was still much to learn. Today was Naruko's 8th birthday, and she was filled with happiness. After her discussion with her sensei, she threw herself even more into the training that the great entity provided. Every day, she pushed herself until she was completely exhausted from the exercises the Jubi assigned. Naruko improved her chakra control greatly. Each day her chakra grew stronger, thanks to the exercises and her efforts to gather various foods. She had only once visited the home of her parents, but she never went inside. She noticed many shinobi patrolled the area regularly, and it seemed no one dared to enter, likely out of respect for the former Hokage and his wife. The Jubi later told her she was probably the only person allowed inside, as her parents had placed a special seal requiring her presence to enter. While training in the Forest of Death, Naruko began learning how to fight. She sought out the creatures of the forest to practice against, grateful that many were large enough to offer a good challenge. She trained to fight without relying on her eyes or chakra, focusing instead on speed and strength. The Jubi told her she had excellent chakra control but advised her not to use these techniques extensively until she gained more experience. After some time, the Jubi gifted Naruko a unique fighting style created with the entity's vast knowledge. Though it was developed in the mindscape, the Jubi promised to credit Naruko as its creator, another gift for her. After some consideration, she accepted and began training in her own taijutsu style. Without a sparring partner, she practiced against the forest's creatures. However, the Jubi told her that to advance further, she would need to spar with another person, either in friendly practice or a proper challenge. Naruko accepted the idea but was hesitant to find a friend, trusting only her sensei for now. The Jubi then taught her how to sense negativity in others, an ability that came from a part of the entity's past, and helped her develop her sensory skills. Naruko took to this training naturally, as she had with most of the lessons. Another revelation was that someday she would possess all the powers of the previous Bijou and more. Though she wasn't sure what she would do with so much power, the Jubi assured her she was smart and not driven by greed. In that time, Naruko had also grown. She stood about 4 feet 3 inches tall, 131 centimeters, tall for an 8-year-old. She wore a red t-shirt and blue shorts, barefoot as usual. These clothes were borrowed from the libraries lost and found after several visits to read more books. Her hair had grown longer and spikier, reaching just below her shoulders. The color had brightened slightly, a shade of red she loved. She considered cutting it but decided to keep it long after the Jubi mentioned she might develop a technique using her hair, either for offense or defense. Naruko was bathing in a nearby river, her clothes folded neatly on a tree stump. After cleaning herself, she quickly stepped out, eager to train more in her taijutsu style, a fighting form that felt natural to her and suited her movement perfectly. She was putting on her pants when she suddenly heard a gasp. Startled, she took a defensive stance and looked around but sensed no one nearby. "Who's there? Please come out if you mean no harm," she said firmly. A burst of laughter came from behind a tree, and an older woman with purple hair tied in an unusual style stepped forward. Before Naruko could speak, another woman appeared beside her. This woman had messy black hair, wore similar clothes, and had striking red eyes. Naruko was momentarily stunned by how beautiful her eyes were. She relaxed her stance slightly, her mouth slightly open in surprise. Both women noticed her reaction and exchanged amused looks. "Wow, a young admirer already," the woman with red eyes thought, feeling curious but also cautious about the child's gaze. Naruko smiled softly and said, "You have beautiful eyes." Then she assumed her fighting stance again, her expression serious. The compliment surprised both women. "She noticed my eyes in a way no one else has," the red-eyed woman thought. "Who is this child, and why is she here?" The purple-haired woman spoke first. "Hey kid, what are you doing here?" Naruko's expression grew even more serious, with a hint of determination. "I live here. What about you? Are you here with ill intentions?" she asked, surprising the women. The purple-haired woman thought, "No one lives here. This forest is dangerous to anyone not strong enough to enter, something I doubted about this child." Both women exchanged glances, startled by Naruko's confidence. "Why would we want to harm you?" the purple-haired woman asked. "Do you even understand where you are and what this place is called?" The red-eyed woman nodded, equally curious. "Well, you won't be the first ones from that place to try to confront me, and I stay here because I can, and because I was pushed into this forest. It was either this or face worse outside, because those people from there are blinded by fear and misunderstanding. Also, no, I don't know the name of this place, and honestly, I don't care. I know what lives in this forest, and they don't frighten me. You could say, though, that I'm the one they fear," Naruko said calmly but firmly, keeping her eyes fixed on them. Her senses were alert, she didn't want any surprises. The giant creature nearby was still resting, but Naruko didn't mind. Her answer surprised the two women even more. They couldn't believe something like this was happening, yet here was the girl before them, clearly someone who had adapted to living in the forest. Her clothes and untamed hair made that clear. She hadn't put on her shirt yet, having just finished bathing not long ago. Despite her youth, it was clear Naruko could take care of herself, her slight muscles showed that. Let's all just calm down, alright? We're not here to cause trouble. My friend and I are just looking for a place to train, we know what kind of creatures live in this forest too. I'm sorry if we seem threatening, that was not our intention, the red-eyed woman said for the first time, her voice gentle and pleasant. Naruko quickly used the technique her teacher had taught her, reading their intentions. Finding no threat, she nodded and stood up straight, still shirtless. All right then, I believe you. For now. If you're looking for creatures to challenge, head that way, she said, pointing west. Both women were surprised by this. Wait, you actually face those creatures? They're much larger than you. The purple-haired woman exclaimed, shocked. It was hard for her to believe Naruko fought those forest beasts. Yes, I train by facing them whenever I can. It's tough to train alone, Naruko replied calmly, surprising them again. Before they could say more, Naruko picked up her shirt and put it on, preparing to leave. Wait. Why don't you come with us? This forest isn't very safe, even if you're strong. We can help, and I'm sure our leader would want to hear about all this, the red-eyed woman called out, stopping Naruko in her tracks. Naruko turned back toward them, locking eyes with the red-eyed woman. No, thank you. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not going back there, at least, not now. I don't trust anyone from that place. It's only ever brought me hardship, even your leader. Though I doubt she remembers me. You both take care of yourselves, Naruko said, then disappeared in the blink of an eye. The women stood in stunned silence, not just from what Naruko had said but from her incredible speed. Nai-chan, was that real? Or did you cast some illusion on me? The purple-haired woman asked in disbelief. That was no illusion, Anko. Whoever that girl is, she's mature beyond her years and looks very young. We need to find out who she really is. What she said. It sounds familiar, don't you think? The red-eyed woman replied. They both recalled stories of a young girl from Konoha who had once been treated unfairly and then vanished without a trace. Though they had never met her or known what she looked like, they had heard rumors, something called the Curse of Konoha. With nothing else to say, the two women continued with their original purpose, training in the Forest of Death. Meanwhile, the red-eyed woman couldn't stop thinking about Naruko, especially admiring the color of her hair. Red is my favorite color. But who was she? I have to find out. For someone so young to live in a place like this. Her thoughts lingered as they ventured deeper. The purple-haired woman noticed her friend's expression as they moved through the trees. You're really interested in someone you just met, Nai-chan. I'm curious too, finding someone who lives here is rare and exciting, but you seem to have taken quite a liking to her, she thought with a sly smile, hidden from her friend's view. The Ice Queen of Konoha, an aspiring genjutsu specialist showing such warmth, that's unexpected. Whoever you are, Naruko, we'll meet again sooner than you think. Back at her cave, Naruko made sure no one was following her. She knew that sooner or later, people from Konoha would find her since this forest belonged to the village. She just hadn't expected it to happen so soon, there was still so much training left to do. Living here wasn't permanent, Naruko wanted to achieve something meaningful with her life. So, encountering those two women wasn't a complete surprise. Maybe I'll see them again. I just hope they don't try to cause trouble like others did before. This time, I won't back down, she thought as she lay down and closed her eyes, ready to rest. Hello, my wonderful YouTube family. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, your support means the world. Thank you so much. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.